Lasso. I'm bad someone some vegetarian. That's go to grow.
Okay, we're gonna get started. Hello, everybody.
Lasso, didn't got to can also same change of same Kiana yon. That change of same the Kenny shot your marriage soon the cathedral. That change of say we don't but so your pose on Gores in the Chevari. Tell telling also change of say Pisaton chop yes, they had the motor chair with Cabre.
So, the last time we talked about even if I develop only bodhicitta, I also have to take the, what is it? So you also have, even if you develop bodhicitta, you also have to take the bodhisattva vows and practice bodhicitta. And so in the last time we talked about some of the 18 root bodhisattva vows.
Ani jia tes large la so chancho se pi domba ze dia tel dan da taton chok ye ze domba chola tanja ya tel taton la wo pe na motan do chi na chola tanja tel taton la wo ya te ti kyun sho la pe ti chola ma ton tel ni chi la ni ko ni pa che chong pe na chancho se pi taton do chi kina domba pe ti chola do ani ni chi do chi kina chola do yo ma khabar tin ji yo taton da ni chi khabar.
And so, and the difference between what we talk about is the 18 root vows and the secondary vows is that if you break one of the 18 root vows, you lose your bodhicitta. But if you break one of the secondary vows, that's not true.
Achi kensan rawo chigle mandawa chikare nga so so to domba le manche sata gelon li na saton jeton gelon mali na saton jesha kandwa. Tel saton chik kesona ani tagara mitsetele ko yanjo zo cho ja chikan yo. Gelon le saton shir. Gelon mal saton jer. On tendi kanron chiki sona mitsetele yanjo zo chikan yo ma ani cholan do.
And so, for example, as a monastic, in the monastic vows, if you're a monk, you have 4 of these, what we call root vows. And if you break one of those, then you've lost your vows for the rest of your life. And for a nun, they have 8 root vows. If you break one of those, they have lost their vows for the rest of their life.
Yena ya chancho sepa ta nga pa ton le ta chancho sepa la ta ton chop ye ta nga le ta ton chaji shere ta so cholan do na yanjo ya zo ayo kati gogo ya zo ayo manda ta tere.
However, with the Bodhisattva vows, even if you break the vows and you lose your bodhicitta, you lose these vows, you're able to retake them over and over again and renew those vows in the same life.
Ati jawlo ko jemse kar rezenan chipando yengo nyen chireta chipashe man ti jemse kar yin ne ya bo ha ko.
And so why these are different, why they're not the same, I'm not really sure.
Tani nga so kasa ta ton chobye kanang dumba partan ro sare ta gepa tel chame nga se atre ta chancho se bai na chame nga le jiga yo ma chame nga le jugna sa ton ki gun re chame nga ta kare zina pa se pa ta ma se pa ta da chomba se pa ter shopi klanga sen cha chongwa ani gende nga yen che pa zini nga se re.
And so now we're going to talk about the 5 heinous deeds is what we talk about, or the 5 deeds, I think sometimes it's called 5 deeds of immediate retribution is another way to translate that, or the 5 deeds without limit. Anyway, it's 5 very serious deeds that you can commit that break your bodhisattva vows, and those 5 are killing one's father, killing one's mother, killing an arhat, maliciously causing a tathagata to bleed, and causing dissension among the sangha. Those are the 5 heinous deeds.
Once so tatandil pase ba ma se patil she on di ngaso amaze at kwatan chimbo yenzi ni katsa ni machine on shere telen chuni mi mombo chowa tadi yongu zengdo ngale na yi chinti at maze at kwatan chimbo yengo ya karre ma kashi chopa shi de chayores bulu pe chaj shi che tindi chenge yore so ta maze at kwatan chimbo yimba karre tingi part kwatan chimbo rem chimbo yimbi ba mando azane tindi lamna na chuna ni shina.
And so so when we think about how important that it is to respect our mothers and to care about our mothers, and why we think about the kindness of the mothers being so important, well, some people say, oh, well, some mothers aren't so good. Some mothers are in fact bad. They don't take care of their children. So, do we really have to respect them in that way? Why do we need to hold them with so much gratitude? But in Buddhism, we still think that it's very important to do this.
Karrezeti Maziat, so Gutam Matsel, Teso Zat, Saba Zunian Rawatres, Zunian Rawim, Tichani, Amaziat, Katan Chimboshui in Garize or Manga Babu, Kietavigis, or Sojon Yapo Cheva, Tetango Maimbaku, counter Teso Saba, Zunian Rawat, Amachade or Sonamata, Hachan Katsum, Matsu Teso Saba, Zuniat Amaro, or Zuniat in Bichani, Benazzo, Matsechikanal, Nimachi, so Sol in Ganda Chichini, Softio Timachicena. So sans in Hajan Catching with zero. I could so Saba Zuni in Sonsa, Nipper to Catching with Yapochena, Marja, Saba Zuni in Sonsan, Catching Bushu race and what they share your race.
And so, from the Buddhist perspective, what we think is that the mother, because the mother is really physically where we came from, it is where our body, it is what produced our physical body. And for that reason, we hold the mother is incredibly important, even if the mother didn't say take care of us when we were older or later, right? For example, imagine if somebody saved your life or protected your life one time, you would hold them as being incredibly important. Well, how much greater is it that someone who actually produces your physical body, right? That you should hold this as an incredible kindness.
Well, sometimes Pedro Tindijani Trio and also so change Amachanga Kenny, Tani Amatinga Chuni Masoni, Amajamba, Jimmy Jamba Chigangasoni, Achembo China, Tanga Sonia Tata, Amakeni Tinin, Amakeni Sena, Samele Sakare Jamba, Sonia the Sena, Samela Sona, Kenya Sena, Samele. So Kenya Amachiora, among it. Among Omuni di Colo Sotonche Omara, Ujara, Jambachic Sotonche, Inaya, the needle Massipi, Tamik, Lesa, Mat the Karaja, what is in Kenya the Jaguarima, the Chick the Jayo Mara, is what you like.
And so when we talk about this, killing was mother in the five heinous deeds, right? So you can take, for example, if you say you were born from one mother, but she doesn't take care of you and someone else raises you, right? Well, which mother is it that we're talking about killing? And we're talking about killing the mother that you were born from in that situation.
That's what any Taketan Abyangazo Amat so Zawachimoche go at the kitchen Burisha, Makashita, Tizia Puchimbo Chazati, Amal Tampalat Amalat Soligabi Shore, and the Papa Amatul Magavachinia, Papa Pochimas, Amayapo. The Ditanazu Test the Zazo Chegori, Soundwich on the Papa Matika Katechi in Ako, Coach at the Katikalichi Gawio, Takiwata Mine, but Puchu, so don't you shoe Katichimocho, the Sotama Jenny Jima, Ama Controls and Nicola Jupanda Shigatan. Zoya and Rawata, something Yungura, Ama called Botan, something Yungura. That's the same Najani, Ama Jals thing it in this hour in the chair, Yoma, Ama Treleso Matonaya, so Kaligat, Trelis say, Trelis say Matona, Ama so same as Archimuchi, Ketchimuri sound.
And so it's very important to really respect our mothers. Of course, sometimes mothers, even though mothers are born to us, sometimes they are mean to us or they hurt us or they do bad things to us or we feel that way. But it's still on top of that, it's very important because they have, how much, even if they are not perfect, even if they've hurt us, they've still put an incredible amount of effort to raise us and protect us. And so it's really important to be careful how we think about our mothers and our fathers and really respect them.
The dawn, Monita Marwa. Kako Puchi Papa Maniko Zoni, Chalon Chamin Roger, and Don Chireta. And in Mijambachi, go Troposhu, Tony Kalichin Road, Mijambachi, called Kalajatsi. Attack your cottage chamber in Messian, your James in Puti, Kalachin the lad. Take your usuals, Papa Maniki, your tap at the Kalakati, Pukuti, you call a Kalata, Papa Mal Gabomini, Chalon Roger, Chalon desire Amara, Trocotopera. Tamichi call a Kalati, go catch Jongal, catching with Shui and the K. Mitchell Chambers. That Kalati, lad, that you usuals. Your Papa Manica, so joining in the Chamber Chown, that your Papa may you enjoy your race. Kalati, Michizia, Tagas, Kitchen is. Goes away.
They can integrate the negotiable in Magic Kalati, the country mambo, and
should you in the soya Jane in Drogo.
And so, for example, this is just sort of a story, an example, like you have some kids that were kicked out of their house, or sent out of their house and their stomachs were hungry, and a stranger gave them some food and they had incredible gratitude for that stranger, and they immediately were sort of not grateful for their parents, but in that they're forgetting all of the times that their parents gave that same kindness to them and were helpful to them up until that point.
Tani dawa chigre sonsa so papa ma to kwajin chimbo imba da tani de ke chimbo isare tani ta pama sepa tani ta chomba sepa zea tani ta tezi kali kapo ingi nga tsu chira yongi mar genda yinche zea ta genda gede no la pa tsu chisha jawa tani tezi chi yonda yongi maro da ta tezi zaza chi ani kesha kalangan sem ko chacha wa tani ta nga tsu yongi maro sangin ji koranje o mar kol chachi chongsa ra kham da chomba sea ta genda ge ye chi aze ti genda zea ta chopal ko chapa je che ki chopa no chisha jawa tani da chi na yinche yo tani tsu lo tsab
Diga su di genda ki chopa di kushola di anila ki chopa di chopa di chitoki.
Oh, just on just off. She and you. Tonga she and you again.
And so the fourth and the fifth ones, or the third, fourth, and the fifth ones, killing an arhat and maliciously causing a tathagata to bleed, of course, because we are not likely to meet an arhat or a tathagata or a Buddha, right? These two are sort of hard for us to actually do, although we should be careful. But we're very unlikely to actually do these two. The fifth one, causing dissension within the Sangha. The Sangha in this case is the fourfold Sangha with the two types of nuns and the two types of monks. So it's a specific definition of the Sangha, and causing dissension within that Sangha is on these 5 heinous deeds. So it's not generally causing dissension in society as a heinous deed.
Ani kabat lokta ta nga so mombo ji she de gra na ge ta sangya se ta ki wa ngap che ya ta so yo mare ze ni so le pa kan de che de ya sa lo tere
and so the ninth one is holding wrong views, like denying the existence of karma, cause and effect, or there is no Buddha, and these kinds of things.
Ani tani chabatri tronson jomba ze te chen tati nga so chonda chonche tata kai na solo no pachini khamba shiga langa shiga ro tata chomba ta solo jasi pozo de nyokta mon pozo de jiro wa tani che u mare chen sol game karni ka chonche ri na ri chonda ri na ri chonsi na khamba shiga langa shiga ro tati tilo no pachi de ati chomare tronson jomba ze.
And so the 10th one, destroying places such as towns, this creates a lot of problems for people. So this is really destroying any kind of a city, a town, a small town, houses, any kind of thing like that. If you are destroying that is a root downfall.
Tani mabyang toni tenze ya chi ore tamagyang toni tenze tomba ni kecha ten yo tez tambo chi karche ore zinata pasol rikashi le tomba ni kecha shi ti jenon loni ta chu se atel beti jemba lo ti cheng chu poro le jemba jenon ro no ti cheng chu le jenon loni ti cheng chu me che wa tenji go inga yo sa yo res ti sol tomba ni kecha she chok ma re ze tandi kale ka ko chi lo pasol tenji jenon lo mo nga to kale ha ko yeah terisha.
So the 11th one is teaching emptiness to the untrained, and then the problem with this is that if you teach teachings like emptiness to those people that are not ready, they'll become frightened or scared and lose interest in Buddhism. So it's important, but it's difficult because you don't know how someone's actually going to react, right, to your teaching. So it's a challenge.
Ani chani pat zoshang dog paziate zoshang dog paziti pasho mi jambal 결혼 그 장초 그 샘께 연속 바로 때 준비줄라 냠래 제든지 지나 팬도 말이지 결혼 제도 말이지 들리다 팀은 그 주제니 거리타나 소소 된로 잠도 달바도 든지 지는 그 레즈니 다 봐줘래 티칭 그 주제 맞지니 팀을 맞지야 든지 지나 장초 샘다 동시 맞잖아 내 거지.
So the 12th one, discouraging others from seeking enlightenment. This is particularly talking about discouraging someone from following the Bodhisattva path, from seeking full enlightenment, and instead saying, oh, it's okay to just achieve individual liberation. It's okay just to follow it's enough to follow what we would call the lower vehicle, and discouraging them from following the full Bodhisattva, the Mahayana path.
Ani tanda chaksambat sotar point tanda yang tichemba yindoche ni yang tani chenyo sar tichemba nga tsu tichemba res domba tsu songwa che umar timing domba tsu songwa yo nga tsu tichemba re karchena ta karse por tsama tongbi ta tsam ponde yo sonsa ke yo mare zakachini sotar domba la ka ba janya rishi tani che chok mare sotar domba songwa res.
So causing others, the 13th one is causing others to break the vows of individual liberation. And so the way this happens is like, oh, we're not people of the lower vehicle, we're people of the higher vehicle. We don't have to keep these lower vehicle vows, right? Everything is really imputed, so we can really ignore these vows of individual liberation. And thinking that way is a root downfall.
Ani tanda chajapatra ta temala marachiyatri. Teba mambala mara chapena nyantu ta rongya tso nyamle chena chapeng mari tiche nyamle che ko tso che yapoyo mar zaketri timela mara che chok mar ko tso che ta mi keso che anda ora tanda so tar ko tsom da yaron keso che achi pari so tar ko tso songwa che manga so tiche bari la de tenanje nyaron tso tar ba ya to mari nyomo sama to mari chigzeni ko tso le me che ate teon chigzeri yore yamoze nyaron la mo ba ze yatri.
So the 14th one is belittling or looking down on those, talking down about those who follow the path of individual liberation. You know, for example, saying, oh, they're not going to actually get rid of all of their afflictions. They're not really, they're not as good as the people in the great vehicle. So really denigrating the people that follow the path of the individual liberation. Well, it's like it's the lower vehicle, which is a name that His Holiness doesn't like. So maybe the Pali tradition, it's difficult to translate this, but the looking down upon those people that follow the path of individual liberation is also a good helpful.
Laso tani zabzab mawaziatre tani jonga patrindo zabzab mawaziat parchi matso domba suda domba nang zin shiachi wa zin chembu shia kyaz shiachi te da chi bayan suda domba nang zin shietse te suda domba tonga ga zin marta zin chembu ziat zabzin zeti zamo madra ta so chi tomba ni ma tona tomba ni to yon dong sa ta zimi ko mujala so pat zeta chancho ko sem ta so ma kena ke yon dong mi jamba ngo kortani so chi nyendo chembo ta tenji kijab ta tenji yon bishe ta o ta shia yo ma te so ta domba na la ta shia ta tenji mo she ma ka ta se mo tini tenji shin so ta domba to yo ma.
So the 15th one, proclaiming false realizations, such as the realization of emptiness. This is claiming any kind of realization or city. In the lower vehicles, you have these cities of sort of magical powers. In the greater vehicle, what we're talking about is saying, say you haven't realized emptiness, but you say, oh, I've realized emptiness, or you haven't actually realized bodhicitta, but you tell other people that you've realized bodhicitta. Particularly trying to get like fame or power or whatever. This is a root downfall.
Ani koncho ko korle baze ngema koncho zeata so koncho padimba dandi koncho korle ze ijinon talokan koncho korle zeata pena nangamot so gyarbota tinji ko wancha chembota so gombat so shi trabat so seti chalat so chonion tangandre chigi nangalche enjorche zinangiti pashoni chonion ya hakwejenda tangile koncho ko chala pashoni gyarbota chapat so choningalche na
Chobne.
Ngalche teachiora ngin le yo mares kumi chala ta chapi chala ro ngin le telina koncho ko korle bisa ton se chimures
So the kushoki ja
ngar kuma ja ka chapa ja kan yo mara mena mejamba kuma ja chapa ja ni oni ngalche na le yo mares
okay
ngin le yo mares koncho korle ze do ngin le yo mares na koncho korle.
So the 16th one, accepting gifts that have been misappropriated from the belongings of the three jewels. So this is really any kind of belongings of the monks or the nuns or something, for example, like from a tsok offering, from empowerment, or anything that has been stolen or taken. You cannot accept that. So if someone steals something like that from the three jewels or offerings and then offers it to you, even though you didn't steal it, accepting the gift is a root downfall.
아니 좀담바 충만차비 작동제야 충만차비 작동제는 다 어때서 원천으로 요사도 저 추다 냠리도 소리 제야를 받치 제야가 첨존 하나 정말 납정아 직진을 볼레더니 좀 치마 코론 좀 줬어요. 치마요. 알 하kon식 좀 많이 돈 조금 맞으세요. 다 출을 받치 제야가 첨존. 어떠서나 충만차비 작동제야.
So the 17, laying down harmful regulations and passing false judgment, right? This is really any kind of regulation, particularly that blocks the practice of Buddhism. For example, in the 1950s when China invaded, it was illegal to speak mantras or to use your mala and say mantras, and they would put you in jail if they caught you doing that. So that's an example of this kind.
What the job about the chance of the same thing that the embody. Chance of the same things in a social chance of the same Kietana, Martin in Yamlichona, Tangi Chonsa Maris, and Lutanja, what the chance of the chance of the same thing was.
And so the 18th one, giving up the pledge of altruistic aspiration or giving up your bodhicitta essentially is after having generated this and taken the vows, you say, okay, I'm never going to do this, or I'm giving this up. You really cast aside your bodhicitta, this pledge to help all sentient beings.
What the little certain job yes, it certain job yet to go a check card sangoris, Gaba Lochtata, job yet by chance of the same Tomanita, Korotiva, some gets at on Chondorim, Gajamba check it on some Gubat Lochta Yimba, Gubat Lochtarwa, and that job yet by the chance of the same Tonita. The meter Koro chance of the same Ton, Lochtaki or did some Saton Pinjo, Jambi check it on Congo Maris. Kalonda or the Jamba Yarko Congo Mariponilla.
They need
Yan and the shit. Saton Chobia can Saton Chichutilla, Cheki Jamba Tangores, Matokoso Pena, not so Dr. Jamondo Chena, Dr. Jamochena, Colo, Saton Kuala, Chachikatsu Tangoresina, Dr. Jamochena, Telinipa Yomari, Yemutag Maris, Nipa Yomaris, or some of Chichi. Only the Yemu Yondo Malo, Tandayan Mountain, Dr. Jamocheco Samba, Mountain Bicalongores, only Ganga Chopaziti, I am Pochonson, Simital Gawa Gongores, only what's such a me, Tandemba. Chaki if Jatomatana, Saton Chogomares, if in a Dr. Jamucheva, some gets at Chogores, Songomariti, Chaki Jatangores, Chaki she's on. Tombota Yamumata, the Letumata, Dr. Jamuchina, the Kari Masami, Yam. Ani Chichini, but Montani on your Dr. Jamuche goes and Yondo Malo, Yanjongi, Dr. Jamuche goes up. Somebody Ganga Jopa. I am watching such a similar guy here. There is about the what's at me, Moboshetara. What's at me, the Jet Matana, Jetutilla, Taton Jogomari. Check it, Jeton. They need Papina. Go back on Georgia about the Papini, Jamba Jututil to check it.
So, of the 18 root downfalls, there's a sort of a test about how they you had the complete downfall. There's 4 qualities of an action that you have to have the complete downfalls. However, 8, holding wrong views, and 18, giving up the pledge of altruistic aspiration, you don't have to have these 4 complete. Really, just doing that, you have them. And so I'm going to go over the 4 right now. So the first one is doing one of these actions and not later, like not holding it as being wrong. The second one is having the intention or doing it again, continually having this intention to do it. The third one is taking joy in doing it, and the fourth one is having no shame or of having done it. And so if you have those 4, then you've got the complete root downfall. But the 8th and the 18th don't require this whole 4 qualities for them to be a complete downfall.
Also, what any that's a job yet the literature. I need to the attention or the time je me that Jajan Sashiro. Anthony, that did Dylan so far to be so with chance of teaching the Yami Chinichina, Kazaganisha, Najamashi Children, Guni Semtiva Inari, Lajanamji, Guni Semtiva Inari, so tombo semkiwa tamba sochi yedang ta semoni ke matanayo mariri ka se totupchi di gonla chunchuk nyamle zati inching che bores chunchuk parot chamba chuk nyamle.
Okay, and so we're not going to go, we're going to stop, we've done the 18th root downfalls of the Bodhisattva Vows. I'm not going to do the 46 secondary downfalls. And so, and just to summarize here, right, as we are practitioners of the Mahayana vehicle, when we generate bodhicitta, it's really important that we do this, and we do this we can either do it by the practice of exchanging self and others, or the practice of the 7-point cause and effect. Either one, we can do it, and we do it every day, and we do it over and over again, and we sort of slowly generate this mind of enlightenment. And as we do that, even if it's not artificial, even if we're just sort of generating this mind, it's also really important that we practice the 6 perfections.
자동리 랍사리 다들 이part 제거리 소소 컨택트 당하서 전주 세파나지 제토 말이나 저 하거리 다서서 강주주치 반조게 전이 지나치 계셔대 트리스테기오나 배셔대 트리스테 칼라테 트리아요나 칼라테 트리타나 미첸글라 동바근 점대야다 가차님보시 예모쇼와다 가차님보시아야 저 컨택트 파쇼코마 셈가비 같은 지남지 땡고르지 네마시 치클라브레제 콜 밀리 김바타 찰란로 뜬지 치까메스 Kari Jimba Tango, the Gemushora Yoras, Kitchen Yambushora, the Niches, so on Jimbando, the Niches, so on Jet of Tojiches, Jabanato Mil Gemushora, Kitchen Yambushia, not to Jet home, Kitchen Boys. Me Kitchen Yambushina, not Thomas in Bakiboy window. The Naji Gemushor, the Nichina, Simbakibo, the Katina, Domana, which in an Andresina Domana, which you are.
And so, among the 6 perfections that we should be practicing, the first 6 perfection is the perfection of giving or generosity. And of course, there's many different ways to practice generosity or giving. We can give the Dharma, we can give teachings, we can give food to people who are hungry, we can give money or wealth. Really any kind of giving we should practice as much as we're able. And it doesn't even have to be sort of material things. For even something as simple as smiling, having a good face, telling a joke, making someone laugh, right? That can be a gift, can be a practice of generosity. And so it doesn't have to be money and wealth, although that is also really important. So for example, if we go around all day with like a dark face, a scowl, of course, then that's not great. But if we go around smiling at people and trying to make them laugh, that is a form of generosity, a way of helping others.
Laso tani tanda dinal chuji jamba ya chisheswa yamba kikyo so ya na chu jande ore jamba ta so na chu kol kar rezi choso kacha chini tende chungure so kanshi pat sawa nyini semna majeni pa sheta te so nam chembore te se na jegwa yo mare so shia ta shete na zawani yo mare zawayo ngi te zawdo re ngi shia ta mal shena ngi te zawdo mare kate kichandra chini te chona kanto to sheta te jamba chembo tigre.
And so, in the division of the 3, the first is the giving the Dharma or giving teachings. And so, really, just as one is able, as much as one is able, or to one's own capacity, if you share the Dharma, if you explain the teachings from your own experience, that can be of great benefit to other people, and that is one of the types of generosity.
Laso tani o tombo parchen chikan ng nyamle tombo jimba teri nipa tsutum zeyatri ta ngemanga to sotar korea shetari ani magge chapung tsutum shetaimba magge chapung ni gya chatoya ke tsutum chingri nipa ta so domba ro yo saina domba sotar dombi gya kare yo nari chancho sepi domba yo nari to so yapo songayatla tsutum parchen nyamle ndre.
And so the second of the 6 perfections, so we've done giving, and now we're going to talk about ethical discipline, right? So we've talked about ethical discipline throughout our teachings here. So giving up, for example, giving up the 10 negative actions and adopting the 10 good actions, taking and following the 3 types of vows, the individual liberation vows, the Bodhisattva vows, and the Tantra vows, and you're keeping any of these vows. These actions are the practice of ethical discipline.
or last authority. So, Satum down, the next number of Zopa to Simcha Lanopa on Yana, they were it. So, Yapos on Simcha Lanopa Material Pendochimbo, the 2D Nopa on Yana, Yahapo, and also Domata Soyapos on Machine of the machine, Magage Soyapos on. So, New York Simcha Lanopa Chimara, Nopa on Yana, they had a sugar.
And so when we talk about the third one, patience, the essence of patience is not harming others, is really when we talk about patience, this is the act of not harming other sentient beings, not harming others.
Ani sambat zopi parchanga nyamle ziyata rishkirtan ninga so semgirle joba marab ko samlundra mandachi ubinani tinani control ziyata hachani samlo dikyachi tsegore titswala tini ti doshop zopi nyamle de musi parchen chikano chiktseyore do chame bige tsag parchen chikano musi jayo mara inaya jedame bige tsag zopat parchen chikano musi jayo.
And so one of the special qualities of the third here, the practice of patience, is that it is the antidote for anger. It is the direct antidote for anger. So if you meditate, if you practice patience, it is a direct antidote for anger and aversion arising. And so it's interesting because in the six perfections, there isn't an exact antidote for craving or attachment, but there is this practice of patience, which is the direct antidote for anger.
Zopi korlangema ni nani ngaso kyonjik jubikableyan mambo shete ndata zopa gomikaps napje mijamba ngaso control lani kinsongani ngaso maga chinye ta maki pachini tundri kamen deme mambo chi yongore del khatel kare gyasi chambo jawala semcha masonam khash te tab joki yomana troi sem da chingjo na te da tamcha chom tam song zini sikchi yore karze worizina tanja manja ngaso control lani yongore yes Kechojani control angore Kachati Kashini control on it, Panjo to Tonkachini, Chumajani, Manda control on it, Tangaso Teso Lingjani, Akatechani, Katecha, but silly givers and also Chetwa, Savani or Mares, Tilly Dote, Marzo Sembalo, Chini, Mares, and Sosochena, Kasha puts control on it, so control on Malani, Semjavala Netwana. No part changing to a
and so there's a quote in terms of the practice of patience, right? There's a quote from the Shantideva, which I can't quote, but I'll explain the essence of it here. Is that in our lives, people are going to constantly annoy us. There's going to be wars. People are going to try to hurt us. They're going to steal from us. Like things that could make us angry, the causes for anger arising are sort of endless. And if we try to fight back, if we try to answer each and every one, it's just going to create more and more problems, more and more anger. Instead of doing that, if we actually tame our own mind, if we can actually stay peaceful and happy and not respond, then that is sort of an answer for all of it, that we can maintain a happy, peaceful
mind. Tama kwa pasa tama yo bana kamba mtabishi tsal sekap yabuna je maris ani tamngol kwa chijana langwa de chiponi jana satan tama kwa yo na chipari ni no so semte yapochi tapo yaptona control ani la menje ta chiparis tanji kamba lama yo sati temami wati ni peja ore te pache joto savlo tan ti namne che ta pe to sari sam so market by the passion control on the ten to bore na jima trainer
So there's an example also from Shantideva that say you imagine the world is covered with thorns, and if you want to try to cover the whole world to block the thorns, that I think usually with leather that would be very, very difficult. But really, all you have to do is just cover your feet. If you cover your feet, it's as if you've covered the whole world. And so this is an example for this idea of practicing patience with your mind. If you're able to practice patience, if you're able to practice dharma, it's like this is covering your feet so that the thorns don't bother you.
That's a penandina motaga terze kitchen with yonder and the shallow kitchen with Yana, Chiki Yana, the Tomba Napotian. Kosole Tindi Chema Chosin at Cheguna, that's all one chat the mail. You know, so control man on the so simple chat, and that's all Geshe Lharampa Rangrig. So that so money. Hakoson. So chat ten up money Kalikapondu. You know, cutting the 10 to 10 depend on the Naro, passion chingman reaction. 지금 마키야 경 아타 코로코로도 바지르 닌도 바 나지 체로 마레스 코로코로도 아 샹나로 나로 로데네 캡산테레사 람선 로 챕터 텐데 챕터.
So also, for example, here there's of course many ways we could get annoyed. There's constant honking. There's people making noise, right? There's neighbors being loud or dogs barking. There's all these things that we could get annoyed about. And if you if you tried to tell them to stop, it's not going to work. You can't stop it. There's nothing you can do about this really. So you have no control of these external conditions, but you 100% have control of your own mind. And what I said to him is, well, sometimes it's not so easy, though. That was the discussion we had. And he said, yes, but you can do it, right? So you have no control of the external world, the external phenomena, these things. But if you practice, you are able to control and pacify your own mind. And then it's as if you've controlled.
아니 반디 다와가 양조바 고통을 탑로 잠바치 셰오르 타티 쿄지 나라 츠카치 반라오요 마솔 미치 그 츠노 파치 갑스 콜파 파치 체나 날치 펜토친도에스 치 컴펜도요 마레스 만노 파치 아차다 랑장 파페나 친지치게 치 마텐소나 케 파치 치나 마타 장로요 나다 디크레다 데노 조마리 치바요 알라 파쇼레 칸네테 파치 조 반디 다와가 소요 Teli, te matse, pa contre disons de pas ça, de pas de yanji matina man de yant de kangi, de pas gol, de pas kangi gol kangi mangayo mares. Teli, zopa comme jota, kangi jonta ne jontares. Je yo mare, digil kangi sama kinchar, zopa yachi yo mares, and it is on the tata so much mugger kinyami chetang keshari, a yankam draw that the jingle bajana. Kaporwa.
So there's another example from Paldendawa Jakpa from Oma Jukpa for entering the middle way, but it's from entering the middle way. I think that maybe isn't correct, but the example is this: that if someone hurts you, if you, say someone cuts you, stabs you or something like that, if you try to hurt them or stab them back, it's not going to do anyone any good. You're still going to be hurt, right? So that is the example of practicing patience, right? So just because someone hurts you and then you grab the knife and hurt them back, you've just created more problems. So instead, if someone hurts you, you go, oh, okay, yeah, well, I've been hurt, and you just accept that that's been hurt, and you don't continue to create problems. It's much better.
Questo da non ci un legem de jaja goni shegore kapteti ni zopa consome so se chamal na me apo yungores o ki chamal apo yungores ni te shegore karsa tili toki control on mona se chamal karteli chewa yon atan so gutan da gewa saja so ma trola tan da tinji kyo mombo chi yo son da zopa gongores ni zu pa de dawa so se chamal jaja chi ni shegore ta tema chama mana pena ni de katso shori kawle Niezo pas de comme son agnon chat change tout au doigt. A kits na pochi la tine pa na parshi tsachi na pa chi parshi seri tabrin gonjo durin tendal ya kan chi so doigt.
So and in this text particularly we're thinking about from the perspective of Buddhism, we're thinking about karma and its karma and effects and so the effect of this next life. So if we don't practice patience and when someone hurts us, we respond by hurting them, we're creating negative karma that is going to create problems for us in the future life as well. So the practice of patience is very important, not just in this life, but also particularly thinking about us not creating negative karma that's going to create unhappiness for us in the future lives. But also in this life, if you say you get in a fight or you start attacking each other, of course you're creating a lot of problems for yourself in this life as well.
Laso tani oten smota zopat katina gontuna so sumtse po yungre tani jabat zonji ta zonji se ade kyotani zonji ta gela cho zenita geu shol batso chia chiri tanga so lobjon chekena lobjon batso chegora ki jota ta gyo zonji zeni nyure ki gyo zeti korotel kapo chia ta gyo zeti gyntuni batso chia ta parti ta pa imagini chile kaligya mai bagedel ni kaligya mro reza na chunyawle chewale ti ha chakka chimbore zeni tunji parching nyawle koro nyoshi jayore.
And so it's very important as much as one is able to practice patience. That's a really important thing for us to continue practicing patience as much as possible. The fourth of the 6 paramitas is joyous perseverance. And joyous perseverance is essentially taking joy in the things that are virtuous, and also continuing. Like, if we have joy in things that are virtuous, we're able to continuously do them and do them and do them without stopping.
Last tani zonji ta ngapa sabtan da tripa shiravre te parchen de tawa tats ko musu zangandu lopi la yang ji shi chang to to la sarch ke pai jani la dans zone de jermilam nyate gela kyor chingi lav ja sholoka chingdo rason mote ta tersu de journée dans longtemps ni chez ngore journée dans longtemps de journée su de certains parchen nyamlen dans shirap de longtemps de shira parchen nyamlen li garnan de piore.
So now we're moving on to the 5th and 6th perfections, the perfections of concentration, perfection of wisdom. And this takes us to the next verse here, which says, once I have pacified distractions to wrong objects and correctly analyzed the meanings of reality, please bless me to generate quickly within my mind stream the unified path of calm abiding and special insight. And so here we're talking about the Shine Matung in Tibetan, which is the practice of calm abiding and the practice of special insight.
Reta jotani sabtan parchen zia to su gomre se mu par tembo ya pochi che goris ngato leka karchina simtan chuzia the sem gunyamli so the sempe na chanchu kusem gol tembo deni katina te ta de to atani leka karchina te sem tembo shi uchi che go atlo su sabtan she gore.
And so the perfection of concentration, the 5th perfection, is having a mind that is very stable. Like whatever we're doing, whatever work we're doing, we can keep our mind on the object, on the goal, fixed very stably, continuously.
Ani shira parchinga nyamle zena te ndrig mndrig takye ya pochi tani na kyole te ndriksa ta ta la ndo gore ma to non tri changa nyamle ka ze che te na phemba me sonsa shira ko takye ya pochi che ni ta non tri me pi nyamle ji che ko ala shira parchi se yore.
And so the 6th perfection, wisdom, is this ability to when we're investigating something to understand what is right or what is wrong, what is correct, what is incorrect, and to do this flawlessly. This is the perfection of wisdom.
Loso tandi kaps su shirab ka pache sad kare lobby yella nga so yani matset lobby yella yani ki de yores lobby yella yani ship che chance lobby yer dena karzeti nga so matset nontri kyanya chene kilin ro de yores ra nontri chang matset nontri shorya karrezeti nga so iya ta samya ta dekhe ke che kyanya la nyama jok nga pon yala ni gonda mani parta san nya sama ta dekhe ke che te chik samni leka che de yores daily doctor dekhe ta mani kangi kyanya yon de dos te karrezeti te notri shole ka notri shole leka ta ta de yona dekhe yon ye jike ta ta jok de yona dekhe yon gore mo kangi yon to chuni yon mar te tende notri shole yores sonta ga so matset lobby yela yon de yores.
So the first line of this verse, once I have pacified distractions to wrong objects. So the distractions to wrong objects. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about becoming focused or being distracted by incorrect beliefs, incorrect objects of action. For example, in our lives, from morning, the moment we wake up until the moment we go to sleep, what we're doing is we're searching for happiness. We're trying to find peace and happiness. And we're working toward what we think is peace and happiness all the time, but we continually fail to get peace and happiness. So what we actually get is a lot of troubles and difficulties. Well, why is this? It's because we have these incorrect beliefs, these, in this, what we would say, distractions to wrong objects. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's a better way to translate that. Yeah, distractions to wrong objects. So because we have these incorrect objects that we're chasing, these incorrect beliefs are about the world around us that we're continually distracted by, this is why even though we're searching for happiness and peace, we're not getting it. We're actually getting the opposite. We're getting difficulties.
Pena dagisha na so na gichen so kodrostan chena pasho kotsela no pa chena di lendel karche or pa control on no lenche at the deke jotto na shauri na chu ta ta chena te mares sanno pa chena zopa kunna deki ungre zini te she gore te na nga so do chanda o china nga so chen so kondo pa na 파쇼고 잘라다 말이 같이 말이 tanto 나가서 되기 용하셔야 되고 그래서 나주고 신의 때 말이서 소소 난 인도파 같이 처리 tanto 나 되기 용 그래서 되시고 그래서 다 손다 가서 나빈 그 저기 tanto 논주 change를 이제
So to give you two examples, for example, in our society, in our lives, right? Normally people, if someone does something wrong to you, you do something wrong back, right? You sort of, but that just creates more problems. From the Buddhist perspective, what we should do is practice patience and not get angry. And also, for example, in our lives, in our society, there's all these many things that we might want to buy or might want to acquire, and we think that the more that we acquire, if we acquire more and more things, that we will be happy. But of course, this doesn't work at all from a Buddhist perspective. What we actually have to do is change our minds. We have to actually decrease the amount of craving and attachment, and that's where happiness comes from.
어떤지 지원이다. 이 파파파 때서나 정신전다 당즈제대들 등종도 이제 나주고 뜻이고 노트셔상 원이 소소 나제야 자와친 무시우치지 나제야 먼저 코로나체 마토니 때 노트셔상 자와더니 레스.
And so the root place that we make this mistake, like the most important place, I'd say like the root place that we make mistakes is this understanding of self. So we have this self-grasping or this mistaken conception of self, and we have this self that we think, oh, I have this self that's so important, so much more important than everyone else, right? So that afflictive self-grasping, that is really the fundamental, the root place that we're making this kind of mistake.
손자 드니티 동반이 그 계셔야 시험 거래 나가모니 때 몸보여서 페나 파데 다와 접하고 나제야 때 간지치게 때 먼저 제와라 탑럽 든든든든지 시에니 다 제바쟁도 다든
So we also can talk about the emptiness, right, which is the ultimate meaning of reality. And Chandrakirti teaches emptiness through what we call the 7 extremes.
단다 대 동보다 kokasha tremondi naze de karre sitete chulu tsoma na naze ni ka ngato tsoma tsawa chimbo chedi naze ya kadare zeni ngata tsimu yore ni pombo trendu pombo li jamba ji nga chindu zeni chowa tombo tere.
And so in this sevenfold reasoning, or this reasoning of the 7 extremes, the first thing we have to think about is, what is this I? What is this self, right? We spend all this time thinking about the self, concentrating on the self. Well, what is this self? Is this self the aggregates, or is this self different from the aggregates?
Sonzati nema jagraka chulu non tranjanda cherapa se ayore tesa Hindu chulu tachipa insaro tani yamboj hamu counter so karze ngaze ato pombo li loksi yore lawor. Pena pombo to mocha najin chitanga ze ato mocha tanyen najin. Tani loksi yore sonza pombo jina ngaze ato tilang rogres because sai tamjaro tere te maje ngaze ato tapares.
And so some of the outsider tenets, these Indian tenets, non-Buddhist Indian tenets that existed at the time, they held this belief that the person, the I, the self, and the body are actually totally separate from the aggregate. So that the I, the self, is permanent, and that the body is impermanent. Like you can think of it like a driver in a car, whereas the aggregates would be the car and the driver would be the self, right? And they're totally separate phenomena. These were beliefs held by some of the Indian outsider, the non-Buddhist tenets at the time.
Also, tani telo party dawa rupanda manda mambo tando tatu ko dianda wachina. Katina ngaze atan pena ngaze atan to chota the council sena kontwa ko pombo tungonza wala tani ko ze achin tungo tumunga dili lokpa mocha ta tananj mocha tani nanj so tongwa chiti na ya sekang tungo mundwas. Sonza mocha ta manajinga mocha tani manajinga so chi yona samsam so mayo goreta. Pombo tongwa tani konton son jarbo tumunga dili loksa konton ta zawa yini miso. Mocha tani ta manaj tani so zawa yini samare zin kapati ja. Katina ngatan tong nicho injulan transformation injulan pombo to manton injun tong kaps chairman do mocha china mocha mantona mocha tanya moyando.
And so the Chandrakirti critique this view by saying that, okay, the person And the aggregates cannot be separate in the way that you hold like a car and a driver and a car to be separate, because you can't see the person separate from the aggregates. You can't see the person separate from the body, right? The only way to see the person is by seeing the body. So it's not like a car and a driver where you can see the driver separate from the car. So there's no way that the person and the aggregates could be totally separate in this way.
Sonta data pombo ni de na dang pombo ni de ngo chi pa sha gong du sting na yang ka cha ta me nyu chi ma to karta mo cha ta ni na ji chi mo ta ta pa chi ta ni ni jang du.
So therefore the person in the body or the person in the aggregates are one entity, right? There's no way to separate them in the way that you could separate a car from its driver.
Teru dan de jo to samsong da dan jo to samaro kama chu mung mung de cha len chi ja ni ji ma ta le na so she ga la ma chu ta.
So we're not going to go through all of the 7 right now. I think we'll go ahead and move on to questions and answers if anyone has any questions.
Tao chi tong na so ya la chi ten ro ta de pombo li mo ta ta da yin ya chi ten ro ta.
And so this is the first. We did the first of the 7 of the sevenfold reasoning. Chandrakirti 7.
La sa because it
So the last part, Geshe mentioned about, so the person and the aggregates are not separated, right? That's from the.
They cannot be separated.
Yeah,
one
they cannot.
entity.
Yeah, that's from the Buddhist point of view, right? But
yes.
Before we learn understanding the mind, so when people like they pass away, when they die, so then the aggregates were decayed. And then at that stage, then the consciousness and the aggregate separate, isn't it?
Well, the consciousness is one of the aggregates, but I'll ask him the question.
Oh, consciousness is
one of the 5 aggregates.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was saying body, but the aggregates is the more correct thing. But you want me to ask him? I mean, I can.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So the da tang pumbo nga tetso the yewa chitu kimares. Yene michi ki shitu the pumbo tetso lakires ya the mete mutun jodires.
Re. Ta te ki wa chi ne gal tik saro ta ko leg ni pa ma zo pa te da ta pombo ni ka cha ta meres. Ta leg ni pa zo sondi ta dag zeyat ki wa chiman ro re la pombo zeyat lang ro re ina pombo chama me pa chang ro re na ten ro ma re da ta nyam de yong pombo chamu de zo yong ro ja re na shi pombo la so pa te zo ten ro ja re pe na ta da ngo chi yi tong de kan ji.
So when we think about the body or the aggregates of this life, until our karma is exhausted, we have these aggregates. Body's not a great word English because it creates this confusion. These aggregates. When we die, of course, we lose these aggregates, but we don't lose all of these aggregates. When you die, the subtle aggregate of the consciousness, or the aggregate of the subtle consciousness, continues on.
Yes.
Actually, pombo chi yora, benanga rangrig zaya chi yora. Rangrig zaya ngonze che ngoni tendi pombo de. Ta namshi te pombo de ka chan ro ti rangrig zaya me pa chang sa. Ngonze che chi khom. Ko ngonze che yo chen che le pombo de ngonze che na ma to je ngonze che sa chi kyo ni ra mo dos. Te su te she de.
But in this life, of course, it's only through the body aggregates that we actually can recognize and say, oh, that's Geshe Lharampa, right? It's when you see that, you can say, oh, that's Geshe Lharampa, and there's no other place you can say, oh, that's Geshe Lharampa, through the body in this life.
Yeah, I understand. I got it. Yeah. Thank you.
Last question,
Anyone else have questions?
So he's saying that we should develop patience as one of the paramis. So if someone is attacking us, we should defend ourselves. To what extent should we defend ourselves?
Okay. So the kongkichi the also the super kongkichi yang miji kingala the na the miji kingala the chupakyana nga the kariti nga the nga the yakri gap to kimare and nga cheki nga the kong dungire gap dikire konga dunya dikire ve yana di par jogires di trona dikire ve
다 나치고 조핑고 코로니 시나는 따라 동치야 되리시 가리 네마 트랜스포 슈퍼마지야 지오레스 로지칭도 상지 샤게트 바 그징네 뭐 고곰자니 조바고니 되어디다 야르보지 그 점목하시 코사를 추적한로레제 야르보 점모제나 코다 야르보 기메 야르보 아고라 야르보 pombo pombo ngamba jabo za yora queen
네네
jabo tsumo queen so transform this chuja kan ro res ani jabo tin chatona ko ti san ro ma kan transform ri ke ko so chi kyo kar che de sa ke so pa ko ni de wala res jo so pa ko ke ta on ya la ni chat sha ni la pa ka yi chi la pa ka yi che res ani na jo ko mi ta ke kar che ke so pa ko ni de 양쪽 가이를 직전에 라바 가이 체레스 아교스 카르치우 소바고니 데데우스 칼라제데 체레스 아라 소바고니 데데레스 그 나주운 로타치나 소바 곰토나 센디소소 소셔소나야 딜리타와치와 찌기요 다 마토나요 아체 제요 마로 점점로 다요 장초세피 님체 소그노리나 요다 가차고 팔레테니 소소 딱딱 지시
중비 상계
장소소바 마와지아다 상계 그기라 말이지
So the ideal, yes, is that, for example, the Buddha in one of his previous lives was meditating, and I think a queen or someone came and actually cut off his arm, and they were like, "What are you going to do?" "Well, I'm just going to meditate on patience." And they cut off the other arm. "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to just keep meditating on patience." Cut off his legs, right? This is the ideal, right? This is if you truly have the practice of patience, you can do this. Of course, for us that is very difficult, and you don't have to do that if you're not able to do that.
Tani zopata soso sejoda tzichena zopa chimbogo matona na bi kinso konen ge nyota chonjong de solo soso zopa ka te gomdo ne pendo hajan chimboyo.
And so, of course, we don't have this incredibly deep practice of patience, but we can practice patience in small ways. We have all of these small ways that things are bothering us or could anger us, that we can practice patience like that we don't have to respond to. So we can practice patience in smaller ways throughout our day, throughout our lives. Is that okay?
Yeah.
What is the difference between causing separation and sangha? So much in actual sangha. What is the difference between causing separation and one sangha? So much. Anila, I'm sorry, I don't understand your question. The distinction you're making there. Are you online? Separation and one sangha. Actual sangha. Let's try the second one. Hello? Shide? I don't understand the distinction you're making. Causing separation in one sangha. Are you talking about like causing separation, for example, in Shide versus causing it in the Arya Sangha or the fully qualified Sangha that we're talking about?
Because you said that Geshe said that causing separation of Sangha. It's not like random Sangha. It's those that really are the nuns or no, there are those Arya beings that, like they really get kunchok, right? And
qualified by the 4 types of monastics, I think it is.
Yes, and the 4 types of monastics, and not just causing normal separation of Sangha. So my question was, what is the difference between causing the fault of causing separation of this Sangha form?
Causing dissension in the Sangha.
Kesana di dwagela ke la ane kachel ki don patunya chik dwa o di gela ki don sonso ane gedun la karesa gedun ki tsopa sana mindu ane gyoshe ni karesa shidwa rikshi di kachel di kyonchen podwas ane ingechiwa dire gelsi di gedun ki tsopa ane karesa ane chapa ani chapa ni rigi nira shis sama domni shis di kachela di kyonchen podus ani ngetiwa dires di tanda cirki rabjungi tsopa da pena gompana la ina daya mena karina che si di kachelna kyong mi rawa yore bes
yo kuchi komaso tanda chuchwata te rendo ta chen samye nga nang genda ge yeche pa rendo
odi
samye nga nang genda ge yeche pa ta genda paru chishang jamni de tse ni zo ja te re ngema de liche ze ya te sangye jerji pi kabla taran tambani ja res ino lapsi nga ze ya chi she yore 다 상기 조던 그 잡아도 저 샤자도 그 지만이 구진직도 저 샤마자스 아니 상기 조던 그 진직도 저 오만 통고도 구진직도 저 오만 통하요 말레스 상기 조던 저 진직도 저 차자도 구진직도 저 차자요 말레스 섬레서 이갈 상기 조던 그 잡아도 저 들로도 저 짜니 근데 마스테니 야성도 무슨 일이 뭐도 근데 제고 말 레벨 지 봐요 저는 그래서 아니 상지 초던디 그 잡아도 수익이 신나도 저거 나한테 들리대요 막 정식 칠마 되고레스 근데 그 계셔 나시니 어때 뎀바레즈니 겐도 몸보치 리칭 그 칼 파주 근데 상지 초던디 칼 주니 직당 리칭 그 칼 주니 치니 나비 겐도 바도 데니 가다서 샤 어떨 겐도 그 인체제나 테리 아마서 단다이나요 근데 잡아대sen 지용 개도 저 바로 계산다 만다 직상 jamni तंब निजो जाना गेंद के ये चांदो ताकि जवा नेगा जत तीन कातुदी कर रहे सोंगे या पछंगो समा तेरे
mare di tagarare da gela len tagaran tristo kare sinisena ani gedungi ngan gedun sopa lab gyo mare inen tagaran gedungi kirsi kachene ani tandag ngan so gedungi sopa nala degido diang ani kitala ni chi do cha she chi diang kache res ngi samsora ina yang ani timares ani sueño sere ngi samso ina tagaran res o di tagaran ngi tiwa tagaran res ani dina tagaran link
tanda dikson
anything up te kare te
nga pot lipchen ga lapsing nga zya chu kandar sanji chode dikera chembo chate lipchen de sanji chode de penjare da brother koro sanji le khate chani chu ti kabla ta chaba to so shaza yo sara shaza na ya yo mar so oman tong yo sara oman tong na ya yo mar si chaza yo sara ati navige no to so chegro de ya yo mar la ani diglo to so ni kucha shan chapa de ma tani ya tsum go re ti che yo mar ko leble to pa ko jo tan te sa leble ko di gal chaba to so gomba la de chose ti chonsi normalement ma de ya te tarim bod ti chonsi normalement de ko res kala to so de bo yo res ki ki cha na ma wa nga she ni ta chaba to so tumuni ta sha
do di chaba de so ti
karsik de reaching ke cha de bare tel pagi kashi na ge sanje cho de ni ja che ni de ni tumuni zo sha de la gen de ye che ba la o so ta te dan ja wo dan da yo 자원자고 용세라 좀 제주 많이 나 겐드나 데니도 좀 잠자 계시니
ini tengrap ki kingdom bate so tiang yowa china di satang yang universe
안다 참미나가 딱딱씩 가요 말다 대단 진튼자고 참미나 그 겐드 그 인세야 대해서 갈이 거기다 요 전자본도 보이는 고소
a little bit yeah any of that can you translate that better than me I don't think I can remember all of that.
Well, also okay. So my question was before when you presented the fault, I think the faults, right? Like not creating, not what's the name?
It's in the five heinous deeds, and it's the not creating dissension in the sangha. And so I think your question is, what is the difference between the sangha?
Not creating separation in the sangha. So my question came from that commentary, because the not creating separation in the sangha, it doesn't mean that it's just about the 4 types of monks and nuns, or very high monks and nuns of before and so forth. That was created my doubt, and then I asked, so these heinous faults of not creating separation, the higher sangha and so forth, that's not the case. Is the one of the 5 heinous crimes is not creating separation in any kind of sangha. So even nowadays, for example, in our current monastic societies and so forth, so if you also, like, one monk speaks bad about the other, or one person speaks bad about one nun or monk and so forth, creating separation in that monastic group, this also falls into one of these 5 heinous crimes.
Is that what Geshe said?
Yes. And why this happened? Because at the time of Buddha, his brother, who didn't like Buddha, and so what he did is he started creating a separation among the monks, because he spoke 5 things that created separation. So let's say in the case they probably were having meat, and so he said, no, all monks cannot have meat. They probably drank milk. No, the monks cannot drink milk, and so forth. And then he said 5 things. And then out of these 5 things that the brother of Buddha said, with the bad intention of separating the monks, the community of monks, mainly because Buddha said some advices and the brother said another one, and then the monks of that monastic community, they split. So they split off, and after your question now to Geshe Lharampa, but in order to have these heinous faults, you have to go through all these 5 lies, or these 5 fault, or these 5 consequence or attribute of this fault. And then Geshe said, no, nowadays it's very difficult. Like, just you have to say you cannot eat meat, and then the person will not believe in you. No, that's not the case, but it's similar to this. In order to create separation in the Sangha, you don't need to go through these 5 points, but just with the motivation of creating separation, like separation among the monastics, like, I don't know, a lie or something that creates the separation, similar to these 5 examples, already touch this fault.
Okay.
Yes, why? In
a situation, Anna's question, in the situation when other people use our kindness or manipulation to get something from us, how should we approach it to stay compassionate? Is there idea of personal boundaries like that in Buddhism? In a situation where people use our kindness or manipulation to get something from us, how should we approach it and stay compassionate? So, sometimes mi chiki simba sambo yena, di mission kungi simba sambo te chedu gor tangi res. Kami chiki sometimes di simba sambo yena, di gor tangya di pecho di lawa tangi res. Di mi chiki nala chena, kanjes ne di gor tangken di mutune di ninje.
nga samba zambo chine mutso nga ngoko tangare la ora
di kungi sambo yen sang
mitso nga
ngoko tangi lawa
re te ngoni re samba zambo chia ngoko tang li labo yore tate so le tayari so nyamle ya pochi chenke china te samba zambo chingo ko te na yang driyan rawa cheni ta ja na drumandro akoro penton na jagre so se ne ata ne sani ni te bachi ko ne dros on data ni ko le jimba yin sambi samlo ro diton ine ma na polio di tsongo na le jaba ni go chala
so yes, if when people are kind, in a way it is easy to manipulate them or to cheat them, right? That is true. That if you are a kind person, if you're kind-hearted, it can be, for example, easier to take advantage of that in a way. And so, but from a Buddhist perspective, you should really think, oh, great, well that was a help for them, and you can think rather than being cheated, you could just say, oh, well, I gave it to them. That it was you think about it as a gift, for example.
Jabani the Chalanyo de Ngangaro Toy. Kit somebody in a cotton drawage, Conchimbo shoe laps on. Koni laps on that, Koni Yaz in your churches on Mijam Bajik, 3 Conchimbo Chego Mare, Coco Tangandu Temars. Tangic when you fish and down road, the coral paint on the riggers in the Poshatara training Joss. When Congo Tango Hama Mari, the coral partial in general. The little cheton and the Yashore. They might chematon and
So, for example, like one example that I saw was a monk went to go buy something at a store, and the store owner gave him a very high price, it was a very difficult price, and the monk, the person, someone told him, "Oh no, that's way too expensive. You shouldn't do it." But he said, "No, I know, but I'm going to give it to him anyway because that money will help him." And so it was a practice of kindness for that monk, even though he wasn't tricked into it. He knew it was a high price. He still paid the high price as a practice of generosity. Is there an idea of personal boundaries in Buddhism? Anna, is that helpful for your question?
Yes, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Lasso. Tinijaka, Jitjangari, so come Chonga Tebandos.
Okay, so we're going to stop there.
Konda.
Yep.
Aja Berry La